Here's how to create an item template in Visual Studio. If there's a particular kind of file that you add to a lot of your projects that for some reason isn't represented in the dialogues you get when you want to add a new item, you can create your own template very simply. Basically what you do is you create it once, export it as a template, and make a few little edits and you're ready to go. So I'm going to start by just making a sandbox project to play in, a Windows Forms app in Visual Basic. And once I have this form created, I'm going to add a new item to my project. Okay, I'm just going to add a plain text file. And I'm going to change its name to instructions. So imagine in every application that you build, you need to have a file of instructions about how to build it or where it's kept or those sorts of things. So I'm going to put the text in here. Now I've put two keywords in here surrounded by $signs. One is root namespace and the other is time. And these are sort of semi-magic strings that you do need to know in order to make the most use of the templated system. As you can imagine, this is going to get the root namespace, Windows Application 7 substituted in, and this is going to get the current time in. They're fully documented on the web. And you see there's machine name, project name, time, username, and so forth and so on available to you to put into the generated item. I'm using a plain file of text, but it could as easily be a file of code or some various other kinds of files. So I'm going to save this just so that it's saved, and then on the File menu we have Export Template. It seems to always ask you to save the solution even though it's saved. I just always go along with it and say go ahead. So you can create two kinds of templates, a project template, which is all of the different files, the references and so forth and so on, or an item template, which is what I want. I only have one project in my solution, so I don't have a lot of choices in that drop down. And then from everything in that project, what is it that I'd like to export? Well, I just want to export that text file, instructions.txt. Now you can imagine that if what I was exporting was a file of code, it might need a reference to work, and I can say that that comes along with it, that when you add this item into your project, you also add these references into your project. Don't need any references for a file of text. So let's put a better template name in than Windows Application 7. Let's go with instructions, and my description here will be a file of instructions for developers and testers. Okay. I don't want to automatically import it into Visual Studio because I'm actually going to be tweaking a little bit before I import it, but I do like the idea of an Explorer window to save me from having to go look for it so that I can do my tweaking. And when I click Finish, it actually generates this instructions.zip here under Visual Studio. And I can expand this. And you can see what we've got. We've got an icon, the actual text file, and then the .vs template file. So let's take a look at that. And you can see that it's just XML. Here's my name, instructions, here's the description that I typed in, and the part that really kind of matters here, the project item. So for example, if I realized that I wanted to add something else in here, I do get IntelliSense. I can add more project items in. I'm not going to. So it's a well understood schema, and you can see too that there is a substitution $file input name .text, so that even though the sort of source for the template is going to come from instructions.txt, what it gets saved as will depend on the name that the user chooses when they add the item. I just need to make one change in here, and that's on this project item where it has the subtype is blank. I need to change this subtype to content. That tells the build system not to compile or build or otherwise work with this, since it's just a plain text file. I'm going to save this, and now I need to get this back into the zip file. So I'm just opening another Windows Explorer up a level so that I can drag the updated VS template file onto the zip. Now, this is where the exported templates go. Putting them here does not magically put them into Visual Studio. I have to put them in the place that Visual Studio looks for templates if I want them there. So, it's a very similar path to this, so I'm going to start with copying it. Instead of my exported templates, there's a thing here for templates. And in here we're split into item and project templates, and then we're further split by language. Most of the templates that you use have code in them, have a particular language's code in them. Instructions here is sort of agnostic, it could go in both. Because I happen to be working with Visual Basic right now, that's the only place I'm going to copy it, but I could in fact copy it to the C# folder as well. So now I have my zip file in the Visual Basic folder. And this now means that if I go back into Visual Studio and choose to add a new item into my project, if we scroll down to the bottom, here we see under My Templates, there's Instructions. Okay? And I'm just going to give it a completely different name other than Instructions so that you can see that that expansion parameter is used. And there you see new name.txt, and you see that we've expanded out the root namespace, and there is also the timestamp. So our template is working and is being put into our project with the substitutions exactly what we want. When you want to deploy this template to other developers for other people to use, all you need to do is copy that zip file into the appropriate folder within that person's documents tree, and they'll have that template available to them also. That's all it takes to make a template.